Good morning. Good to have you with us. I'm Joe Fryer. Savannah is off. We begin this morning with the latest out of the Middle East. We are learning a new round of in-person peace talks between the U.S. and Iran is expected as early as this week. That's according to two people who are familiar with the ongoing negotiations. Remember, just last weekend, Vice President J.D. Vance and his team failed to reach a long-term ceasefire agreement during those 21 hours of marathon negotiations in Pakistan. Still, Vance and President Trump offered hope for future peace talks this week. Right now, the U.S. military is enforcing what CENTCOM is calling a fully implemented blockade on ships that are entering or exiting Iranian ports. Those sources familiar with the negotiations told NBC News the major sticking points for any peace deal remain opening the Strait of Hormuz and addressing Iran's nuclear capabilities. NBC News international correspondent Matt Bradley joins us now from Tel Aviv, Israel, with the very latest out of the Middle East. Matt, good morning. So there's a new interview with Fox Business. President Trump saying the war is, quote, very close to over. What are the U.S. priorities right now ahead of any potential peace talks? And is there any indication that Iran is ready to come back to the table?
Yeah, well, to hear it from the United States side, Iran wants the deal. We heard this from President Trump, but we've also heard from President Trump several times already saying that the war is about to wind down, even as he's escalated or threatened more escalation in the same sentence. So it's unclear necessarily what he's referring to here. These negotiations, as you said, it looks as though we've heard signals from both sides that they are set to continue. We haven't seen any of the bombardments that characterized the first 5 weeks of this conflict. So it looks as though that ceasefire is standing. But the Strait of Hormuz remains a big outstanding issue. We now have a two-ply blockade on the Strait of Hormuz. The Iranians blockading and the Americans blockading the Iranians. So this is going to take quite a bit to untangle. These negotiations that we've been talking about in Islamabad were meant to come to a more permanent deal. Now, it looks as though these negotiators are still going to be trying just to secure the ceasefire that, in theory, is already enduring on the Strait of Hormuz and between Iran, Israel, and the United States.
And Matt, tangled into all of this, Israel and Lebanon, they had their own round of direct talks in Washington Tuesday. What are we learning about those negotiations?
That's right. Well, we heard from all sides saying that they were positive talks and that they were moving towards more direct talks. They're talking about choosing a venue. And the folks that I've been speaking to, the diplomats in Washington, said that these were positive talks. It doesn't look like so much was actually achieved, but we got to remember, there haven't really been this official level of talks between Lebanon and Israel for about 40 years. Now, the two sides have spoken regularly through intermediaries. They've dealt with each other when it comes to business deals, particularly gas extraction off the Mediterranean coast. This is very historic. And just these baby steps, these modest negotiations, are a sign that there's some progress, not just in normalizing relations between these two countries, but also in Israel, maybe trying to take care of Hezbollah.
Matt, also in the middle of these peace talks, U.S. Central Command said last night that a blockade of those Iranian ports is now fully implemented. That halts Iran's economic sea trade. How is this move impacting all the traffic through the Strait of Hormuz?
Yeah, well, we haven't exactly heard whether or not we're going to be seeing any ships. You know, we've heard the U.S. say this before, and there have still been even U.S. Treasury Department sanctioned ships that have moved through the Strait of Hormuz. But now it looks as though this is an effective blockade. And again, it should be. It's a two-ply blockade with the Iranians and the Americans. So it is going to be scaring off quite a bit of tanker traffic. Now, remember, the U.S. blockade is meant to actually sap the Iranians' source of revenue from oil and gas. And that is also going to be striking China, which is one of the few countries that still buys oil from the Iranians despite all of those sanctions. The Chinese reacted with furiosity just in the past couple of days, saying that this war was leading to law of the jungle and demanding that the Strait of Hormuz be reopened.
All right. Matt Bradley in Tel Aviv. Matt, thank you so much. As the war rages on and the U.S. looks for a long-term ceasefire deal, military veterans are watching closely. One group of vets sat down with NBC News to discuss what could be next for the U.S. in the Middle East. NBC News national correspondent Aaron Gilchrist shows us what they had to say.
With the launch of airstrikes on Iran back in February, the U.S. entered a new war that's now stretched well into its second month. A fragile ceasefire coming only after Operation Epic Fury destroyed more than 13,000 targets across Iran, according to the Pentagon.
The United States has devastated the regime's ability to harm Americans and our interests for years to come.
We gathered a group of veterans who've served all over the world and have been watching the war with Iran closely from day one.
We're in it now, deal with what we have at hand. When you're on a mission, you don't stop to ask your NCO, your first sergeant, your captain, why are we doing this?
Universally, these vets support the fighters in the U.S. military and said that something needed to be done.
I'm behind Trump. Whatever he wants to do, I'm for it. As far as I'm concerned, kick some ass. Just get in there and kick some ass.
I think that the Islamic Republic of Iran has been terrorizing the world for about 40 years. I absolutely agree with the decision to ensure that Iran was not a nuclear threat.
We asked about the president's war of words, his post saying a whole civilization will die tonight. Some vets believe the rhetoric is not helpful and potentially dangerous.
Rhetoric will impact everything, whether we're in war or we're sitting here at a conversation.
It could be negative to the troops, so I do believe that they need to maybe find different words to get their point across.
As the administration sends ground troops to the region, some veterans say sending them into Iran would be a bridge too far.
When he said he was going to send ground troops, that just broke my heart, because we need to get it done without ground troops. That's more deaths.
In 38 days of fighting, nearly 5,000 people were killed across the Middle East, most of them in Iran, according to a U.S.-based rights group. That number includes 13 U.S. service members. And even after the war ends, these veterans think the U.S. military presence won't.
What do you think of the idea that the U.S. might have to prop up society for years to come after the war?
I think after this is all said and done, there still need to be some forces over there.
Are we going to be there? I would believe so. Are we going to stay there longer than we should? I would say yes, if it was my opinion.
My father was part of the occupation forces in Italy after the war, and I was born there. I mean, occupation forces are part of what we do.
Aaron Gilchrist, NBC News.
Former California Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell is facing a new criminal investigation after another accuser came forward alleging that he violently sexually assaulted her. Swalwell resigned from Congress yesterday amid mounting accusations from multiple women, including a former staffer. NBC's Alice Barr joins me now with the latest developments. Alice, good morning.
Good morning, Joe. Swalwell, a prominent Democrat, was running for California governor before this series of accusations of sexual misconduct, the latest triggering a second criminal review.
After his enemies. But what I want to talk to you next
in a new push for accountability, former California Congressman Eric Swalwell, one of two House members who resigned on Tuesday, now facing another criminal investigation, with the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department looking into serious new allegations from this woman, Lana Drews, who says Swalwell drugged her drink, raped and choked her in a California hotel room in 2018.
I lost consciousness, and I thought I died.
Drews says she met Swalwell socially, was interested in a business relationship, and that while she didn't report the alleged assault at the time, she did confide in multiple people and make handwritten notes, saying her delay in coming forward
was driven by fear, not doubt.
Swalwell, a married father of 3, apologized for past mistakes in judgment while forcefully denying all allegations of sexual assault or misconduct that multiple women have made against him. Swalwell's attorney called all of the accusations false, fabricated, and deeply offensive, alleging they're a political hit job. Swalwell, a prominent Democrat, dropped his run for California governor and chose to resign from Congress as fellow lawmakers threatened to expel him. Texas Republican Representative Tony Gonzalez making the same decision on the same day. The married father of 6 previously admitted to an affair with a staffer who later died by suicide.
I made a mistake, and I had a lapse in judgment.
The two resignations won't shift the balance of power in Congress, but advocates are hoping for change. Swalwell is already facing a separate criminal investigation over an alleged assault in a Manhattan hotel room in 2024. California's governor announced an August special election to fill the rest of Swalwell's term. Joe, back to you.
All right, Alice, thank you. In a new interview, the acting Attorney General, Todd Blanche, is praising President Trump's handling of the Department of Justice. Blanche told NBC News Americans should be happy that the president is deeply involved with the DOJ. Traditionally, past presidents have shaped policy at the department, but steered clear of influencing or directing investigations and prosecutions, leaving that to career professionals. Blanche was once President Trump's defense attorney, but just this month, he was appointed acting AG after former Attorney General Pam Bondi was ousted. She fell out of favor with the president after bringing several failed cases against his political opponents. She also faced criticism over her handling of the Epstein files. In yesterday's interview, our senior legal correspondent Laura Jarrett, Blanche downplayed those cases, and he explained how he would handle similar directives by President Trump if confirmed to lead the DOJ.
Last September, the president sent a message to the then Attorney General, Pam Bondi. He's imploring her to charge former FBI Director James Comey. I'm sure you know the Post well. If you're nominated and you're confirmed as the next Attorney General, what do you do with a message like that?
The president's, look, I do exactly what we did with the message last time. And we have thousands and thousands of investigations going on in this, federal investigations going on in this country right now. There is outsized focus on a handful of them because they involve individuals that the president has had significant issues, for good reason, by the way, with in the past. That will continue for the rest of the time he's president. I think the fact that he encourages or directs or expects the Department of Justice to do its job, that those type of messages do not faze me. As a matter of fact, I want a president that does that.
For more, let's bring in NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Melanie Zanona. So, Mel, in several recent interviews, including this one, Blanche has sort of dismissed the idea of this firewall that traditionally existed between the White House and the DOJ to preserve independence, to avoid the appearance of political prosecutions. When asked if the president is calling the shots at DOJ headquarters or if the acting AG is, Blanche said, quote, "He is my boss." So what's the takeaway here? Is Blanche learning from some of Bondi's mistakes?
Well, we know that the president was really frustrated with Bondi, that she, in his view, did not do enough to go after some of Trump's perceived political enemies. And that was what contributed to her firing at the DOJ. So perhaps Blanche is really trying to show Trump that there is a new sheriff of town, especially as he is in this really trial period right now, trying to secure a permanent spot at the Department of Justice. But, Joe, he could run into the exact same issues that Pam Bondi did. A federal judge blocked the subpoenas for Fed Chairman Jerome Powell. The cases against both New York Attorney General Letitia James as well as former FBI Director James Comey, both were tossed out. And the DOJ also failed to indict those 6 members of Congress who made that military orders video that Trump labeled as seditious conspiracy. So we'll see whether Blanche has any better luck than his predecessor. The DOJ is considering whether to try to bring the case again against James Comey. But what's really striking from that interview is, to your point, just how little he tried to do to create that firewall that traditionally has existed between the DOJ and the White House.
Mel, I also want to ask about the Epstein files, which is a big deal. We know a group of survivors of the late sex offender filed a class action lawsuit against the Trump administration and also Google last week. They're alleging their personal information was wrongfully disclosed and published online along with those files. So what is Blanche saying about that, and just some of the questions that remain over whether this case is really closed?
Well, he did acknowledge that mistakes were made at the DOJ. He said it was, quote, horrible and, quote, inexcusable that some of those names were ultimately identified from some of the victims. But he also tried to explain that the DOJ was sorting through millions of documents and that they were on the clock to release these documents because of the congressional law. And so he was trying to explain, or at least shed light on, why some of those names did slip through the cracks. Now, in terms of whether there will be additional prosecutions, that has been one really big question around this entire Epstein case. Laura did ask him about that. He said nothing is off the table, that there could be more things to come, that this case is not yet closed. Joe.
All right, Mel, thank you so much. A high school principal in Oklahoma is being hailed as a hero for quickly taking action to stop a suspected school shooter. The police chief says the principal saved kids' lives when he tackled the gunman who was allegedly armed with 2 semi-automatic handguns. The incident was caught on camera. NBC News correspondent Emily Ikeda shows us how it all unfolded.
New video of the heart-stopping moments a gunman walks into Pauls Valley High School in Oklahoma. You can see a pistol in hand. But watch what unfolds next. Principal Kirk Moore in the blue shirt emerging from another door and tackling the suspect, identified by police as 20-year-old Victor Hawkins, a former student of the school. Just feet away, you can see a young person slip out during Moore's fast-acting efforts. Authorities say the principal was shot in the chaos, but managed to get the suspect to drop the gun. Another staff member then scrambling to pick it up.
It doesn't surprise me, the actions that he took, but it is amazing at the actions that he took. There's not a doubt in my mind that he saved kids' lives.
In a statement, Moore said in part, like so many educators around the country, we prepare for these events. I'm grateful that my instincts and training, as well as God's hand, were available to me. The suspect told investigators he was inspired by the Columbine school shooting, according to an affidavit. He now faces numerous charges, including shooting with intent to kill, as the shaken school community is grateful no one was killed, thanks to the heroic actions of their principal. Emily Ikeda, NBC News.
Another round of dangerous storms swept through the Midwest overnight. Heavy rain and gusty winds tore through Wisconsin, causing devastating flooding that damaged a number of homes and washed away roads. The storm produced golf ball-sized hail that crashed into houses and cars in several communities near Madison. In Iowa, the storm system spawned this twister. It was captured on video as it touched down over a field, stirred up some dirt, and grew in size before fizzling out. A number of tornadoes were reported in the Midwest yesterday, leaving a path of destruction across several states. NBC News correspondent Shaquille Brewster is in Kansas with the latest.
It's coming right at us. Devastating tornadoes ripping across the heartland, hitting hard in both Iowa
This is crazy.
and Kansas. At least 15 reported tornadoes wreaking a path of destruction across the Midwest.
Pretty obvious funnel under a rotating wall cloud. Getting pretty close to the ground.
In Hillsdale, Kansas, the walls of these homes shredded to pieces. Crews already racing to repair the downed power lines littered across the roads. People left stunned from the damage.
Oh my gosh. I cannot believe this. I used to work here. This is nutty.
In Ottawa, Jeffrey Castleberry says he was in his home with 6 others, including an 18-month-old baby, when the tornado rolled through.
We opened the door to come through to the family room, and the wall just disappeared in front of us.
You saw it?
Yeah, the wall was gone. Yeah, it was there, and then it was gone.
Violent storms also hit Wisconsin. Car after car after car smashed by fallen trees. And in Colorado, during an April snowstorm, more than 75 vehicles estimated to be part of this massive highway pileup, shutting down one side of I-70. Back in Kansas, the cleanup is underway, with the daunting task of rebuilding now ahead.
We've been here 11 years, and we lost everything.
And the family says they were trying to get to their cellar through that door, through what used to be their family room. They say they stepped outside, realized it was way too late, instead huddled around each other with that baby in between all of them as the debris was flying around. Back to you.
Incredible. All right, Shaq, thank you so much. Let's get the latest on that severe weather and bring in NBC meteorologist Angie Lassman. Angie, good morning.
Hi there, Joe. Good morning to you. Unfortunately, another day where we're going to ramp up those severe chances yet again. You can see an active morning so far across the Great Lakes, places stretching really from Michigan into Illinois and back into Iowa, as well as Kansas and Missouri, dealing with some of those thunderstorms this morning. We've also got a flood concern as we received additional rainfall on top of some of these already saturated grounds, so flood watches and for the entire state of Michigan, and those stretch a little farther south, of course, into parts of Ohio, Illinois, and Indiana. Here's what's going on. We've got kind of this thunderstorm development that we're going to see happen in the warm part of this system, out ahead of this cold front. The highest risk for today for severe weather, you're going to notice, really centered across the Midwest, but it does stretch into parts of the Northeast and back down to the South. So Oklahoma City, Kansas City, St. Louis, Chicago, Pittsburgh, Detroit, Indianapolis, all on the table for you with the hail, the wind gusts, and even a couple of tornadoes. That's the area for today. By tomorrow, this is on the move. So we see this kind of, again, storm development happening, especially in the late day and evening hours for severe weather. That's going to be the bullseye of our greatest chance to see those pop up. The good news is it's a much smaller risk area, but some general thunderstorms possible still from the northeast stretching back to the south. We do have all the threats on the table once again. And then as we head, of course, into Friday, finishing out our work week, we're going to see this new cold front kind of ramp up and move across parts of the plains. This, once again, brings us more strong storms. You can see stretching really, again, those same areas across parts of the south into the Midwest. We've got the hail, the wind gusts, and the tornadoes likely. So really multiple more days of this here on the table. Always reminding you got to have a way to get those alerts if you live in any of these risk areas. And on top of that, we've got the flood risk with some additional rain because, of course, again, some of this happening over the same areas day after day. So saturated soils, we've got upwards of 2 and even 3 inches of rain possible, Joe. So this is going to be something that we see kind of lasting at least through the end of our work week when it comes to the severe weather and the potential for flooding.
All right, Angie, thank you so much.
We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app